as the Pharaoh's armies caught up to the Israelites by the banks of the Red Sea.
I believe this reality hovered over the Red Sea and caused the parting of the Red Sea.
The theory goes that the object's extraterrestrial propulsion system was what physically pushed the waters aside, allowing Moses and his followers safe passage.
Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea, that the water may come back upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen."
If the parting of the Red Sea was done, as I believe it was, by some type of anti-gravitational force, the biblical people wouldn't have understood how to explain that, even if they saw it happening. But I think if modern people had been there to see the same thing occur, they might have given a technical review of what was going on rather than a supernatural review.
Even after escaping the Egyptians, the biblical Israelites faced an arduous journey toward their promised land of milk and honey. Along the way, the pillar of cloud shadowed the Israelites' every move, protecting them as well as guiding them.
The pillar of a cloud during the day is actually providing a canopy. In the area that they were moving, it's a wilderness area, and the temperatures can reach up to 120 degrees, and this went on for 40 years.
I believe the pillar dropped manna from it onto the ground to feed the Jewish people during the 40 years of their exodus, to keep them alive in the wilderness, while what I would call a huge religious conditioning project was going on in the hands of this extraterrestrial reality.
In some modern interpretations, this UFO provided much more than shelter and food. As the Israelites approached the slopes of Mount Sinai, the pillar of cloud again communicated with Moses.
The Lord said to Moses, "Be ready in the morning, and come up in the morning to Mount Sinai, and present yourself there to me on top of the mountain."
When Jehovah landed on the mount, he gave a specific warning to keep people away. Yet he allowed Moses to go in. And Moses went up into the mountain and apparently into the craft that was on the mountain.
Then Moses went up on the mountain, and the cloud covered the mountain. Now the appearance of the glory of the Lord was like a devouring fire on top of the mountain in the sight of the people of Israel. And Moses entered the cloud.
Modern theorists speculate that this time on the mount was spent inside a UFO.
And when he came back down the mountain, his face shone or glowed. The implication is that there's some type of energy transfer going on between human reality and this extraterrestrial reality.
When Moses descended from Mount Sinai, in his hands were the 10 Commandments, the supreme guidelines for his people.
And afterward, all the people of Israel came near, and he gave them in commandment all that the Lord had spoken with him in Mount Sinai.
More than half a millennium before the birth of Christ, a group of Jewish exiles was held captive along the banks of the Chebar River. Among them, a righteous Israelite named Ezekiel. He became a prophet. Ezekiel was enraptured by something in the sky.
As I looked, behold, a stormy wind came out of the north, and a great cloud with brightness round it, and fire flashing forth continually. And in the midst of the fire, as it were gleaming bronze, I saw a wheel upon the earth. As for the appearance of the wheels and their construction, their appearance was like the gleaming of a chrysolite.
Ezekiel is describing a flying, spinning, glowing, metallic object that ascends and lands in front of him. In the modern age, what we see are flying, glowing, spinning metallic objects that ascend and descend just like the objects that are described in the Bible. It's not an illogical conclusion to assume that these craft that we see today may be the exact same craft that they're describing in the Bible in ancient times.
Their construction being, as it were, a wheel within a wheel. When they went into any of their four directions, without turning as they went.
You can tell he was struggling with the description. Now, that's also true of UFO experiences that people have. They're having difficulty describing what they're seeing, and it matches this description that we see in the Bible.
The four wheels had rims, and they had spokes, and their rims were full of eyes round about.
What I believe he's talking about is devices, mechanical devices. And in the time that he was discussing this, there was nothing mechanical. The wheel was about the most sophisticated device that they had.
When the wheels of Ezekiel hovered above him, he may have thought he was seeing a supernatural reality, but what if it was simply a high-tech reality? How do you tell the difference between the supernatural and the super-technological? The more highly technical a reality becomes, the more supernatural it seems.
And from the midst of it came the likeness of four living creatures. Wherever their spirit would go, they went, and the wheels rose along with them. For the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels.
It describes an object that comes from the mountainside and actually disgorges some type of intelligent beings from its interior.
As for the likeness of their faces, each had the face of a man in front. The four had the face of a lion on the right side. The four had the face of an ox on the left side. And the four had the face of an eagle at the back.
In his day and time, quite literally, there's nothing unnatural in the sky. There are no planes. There are no helicopters. There aren't kites. There aren't even any balloons. And in his day and age, nothing moved unless it was alive or unless something living was moving it. So he used the analogy of living creatures.
Over the heads of the living creatures, there was the likeness of a firmament, shining like crystal. And when they went, I heard the sound of their wings, like the sound of many waters, like the thunder of the Almighty.
He sees a firmament, a very large object. So many of the engineers that have looked at this verse believe that what he's talking about is actually landing gear. He describes lights running up and down them. He describes rings of flashing lights around them. And he speaks of a being coming out of the craft, coming out of the firmament above him and speaking to him.